Hey guys, it's Cory from CoryBakerFilmmaker.com, and I just saw A Quiet Place, written by Bryan Wood, Scott Beck, and John Krasinski, and directed by John Krasinski. First off, I saw this movie at Regal LA Live.
Opened in 2009, the Regal LA Live became the West Coast flagship theater of Regal Cinemas. It also has been designated as the Barco Innovation Center, as all 14 screens employ the latest in Barco's laser projection system technology. It brought back the state-of-the-art Premier Cinema House, with 20-plus premieres a year in its 806-seat Balcony Theater 1. It is also home inside Theater 6 to the first 4DX theater in the country, where seats move to the action on screen and special effects like wind, fog, mist, rain, and scents give a transcendent cinema experience unlike anything else. 3,772 seats over 14 screens. The Regal LA Live brings downtown back to the same level it was 100 years beforehand.
So the plot of A Quiet Place, we're in the not too distant future where monsters who can only detect by sound are hunting down people, and everyone has to stop talking, stop making noise, or else the monsters will come get you. And they quickly come out of the woods and start attacking people, and everyone needs to be pitch silent. I enjoyed this flick. I do feel if there was anything about it that really bothered me, it was the fact that so many people were talking it up before I went to go see it. This is a problem I've described before about so a famous story for me is my father used to be a part of Toastmasters, which is like an organization where you give speeches, and he used to always hate when somebody would talk him up on the introduction, going like, "Oh, you don't wait, don't go anywhere because Bill Baker's coming up here and he's so funny and you won't believe how much you're gonna laugh at this speech and it's incredible, and like why are we even wasting time with this introduction, because the funniest motherfucker in the world, Bill Baker's coming up right now, come on up, Bill." And then as soon as you give that speech, everything you've said about how funny he is or how insightful or anything like that, just like you're waiting for it. And all I was hearing about A Quiet Place was like, oh my god, it's so incredible, it's so amazing, you're not going to want to miss this one. And it just felt like it was a bit too much. Like it just didn't live up to the same hype that everybody was giving it. But I thought it was a really fun movie with an interesting concept. Now, to start up front, I mean, the cast, while very small, was all really good. I mean, there's only 7 people listed here on iMdb as actors in this, and I thought all of them were good in their own way. I think Millicent Simmonds was really the star of the whole show. She really... It was nice to see somebody like her in that role, because it just... There's not enough portrayal of deaf people on film, and my mom for a long time used to work with Maryland Relay, which is allowing deaf people to make phone calls, and I like any time somebody new gets to be included. And in this case, as far as the story goes, they probably survived longer because the character was deaf and they already knew sign language to communicate with the daughter. But there's a lot of really nice scenes where, it's the future where, or it's this world where you don't have the internet, you don't have the ability to, go find a specialist who can help fit your daughter with a hearing aid. So John Krasinski is in the basement trying to figure out how to fashion a hearing aid for her, and I really thought it was nice how they were able to include an issue of a deaf character without making it seem patronizing to the deaf character. On top of that, though, I mean, I love Emily Blunt. I love John Krasinski. I think both of them do a fantastic job. It just felt like that there was so much more opportunity for more drama where there was. I mean, like it just. So there's two key deaths that happen. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I'm saying there's one death up front and one death at the end. And the death up front has this, like, it builds and builds, and you sort of see it coming, but it pays off nicely. And then the second death, which should be the more impactful one, it just happens all of a sudden, and it doesn't seem to have the same sort of moment. They try and make it have more, but it just doesn't land quite the same way. And I mean, the suspense of it all was great. There wasn't like jump scares or anything like that. It was just a nicely plotted, suspenseful movie, but it just didn't feel like it ever got to its crescendo in my mind. It got really close and then just stopped like right before it could have had like a very serious impact. And it just a little wanting is my feeling on that. Now, I would say as a sound guy, I wasn't... I mean, you can't... Not every movie is going to be able to be quiet like this, so it's a one-off, and it makes you, like, realize that my job is not in jeopardy of being lost to silent film, essentially. But the thing that I really enjoyed was some of the sound design in it. So, opening scene... Millicent Simmonds and Kate Woodward are the two actors, and they're going back and forth. And obviously, all silent. But when we're on Cade, when the camera's on Cade, we sort of hear the sound of the atmosphere, the room tone, if you will. And when we cut back over to Millicent Simmonds, it sounded very distorted. And this is before we find out that she's deaf. And I remember I was sitting there watching it going like, God damn, this is fucking lazy. They can't even match the room tone. It like, why is it different for her? But those little subtle things, I was just like, so they're doing this for a reason. There's a reason why they wouldn't have missed this. And obviously it was because she was deaf. So her bass line sounded different than his bass line. And the switching of the cameras and the switching of the audio of the just ambient noise showed her deficiencies in that regard. And I thought that was very well done. And I think overall the sound design was really well done. I think it sounds weird to say, but for a movie that doesn't have any dialogue, you really have to get A-game sound people involved so you can get all the little pieces that help fill out the scene. And A Quiet Place did that in spades. Do you hear that noise? It's the leaderboard. Once again, Regal LA Live. We don't need to go too much into that. On to the movie leaderboard. I didn't want to include this as a Fast and the Furious rule contender because it's not... I mean, while horror does seem to not grade as well against like more traditional awards fare, if you will, I felt like this flick in particular was pretty solid on its own. Like it doesn't need the special help to give it a rating that feels true and right to what it is. It's a perfectly enjoyable film, but it's not anything. I think the enjoyment of it will be more here in the immediate aftermath of its release, as opposed to 20 years from now. Like, we're not going to be talking about A Quiet Place like we're talking about The Shining or something like that. It just doesn't have the same sort of impact. But it was a very fun movie, and if you haven't seen it in theaters, it's fun to see in theaters because you got the crowd aspect of it, but it's totally something you could just watch at home on Netflix when it eventually finds its way there. But I will give it a 7.5. So, pretty good flick. Solid hit up the middle, but nothing that's gonna win the World Series. Anyway, that's it for me. If you want more, you can go to my website, CoryBakerFilmmaker.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Cory Baker Film, or on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at LegendsCB5. Subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed it. share it along to somebody if you think they would. And